Well, massive welcome, ladies and gents. Hope you're all good. Massive welcome to everybody that's tuning in live and obviously everybody that's catching up as well. So, what we're going to be doing today, before we start, I'm going to talk about myself and my challenges just briefly. So, I've had a tickly cough for about a week now, so apologize in advance if I have to mute myself at any point during the presentation. I'm so sorry, but I don't want to not do the presentation. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how that goes at least. So we'll jump straight in. We've got the psychological strategies for weight loss success. We were just having a brief chat before I clicked record. Um, I think it's of course obviously very valuable to talk about nutrition strategies specifically, the pros and cons of let's say a low carb approach or a low fat approaches, intermittent fasting, tracking, portion control. All of these things are like the I suppose the tools that we metaphorically put on the table for you to get to pick up and get cracking with. But the problem is sometimes you need to be psychologically ready to pick those tools up in the first place. So we sort of put the cart before the horse sometimes with nutrition and leave out the important step, which the first, debatably, one of the first steps is working on the psychological elements. So that's what we want to do today. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you a few different strategies. So some of them are, but pretty much all of it is evidence based, but there's also some more unique philosophical principles that we can draw upon as well, which might interest you and be of value to you. It's been unbelievably valuable to me personally. So I'm going to share probably 80-90% is based on just unadulterated science. And then maybe 10-20% of it's going to be how can I put it? Maybe like anecdotal evidence, just on based on my personal experiences and people that I know as well. So the problem that we have is when some people say I want to lose weight or I want to put on muscle mass or I want to aim for a podium position in a local event or I want to complete my first marathon or competition. Everybody's got like amazing goals that we're wanting to achieve, but we also simultaneously have the problem of the sort of negative self-talk, I suppose, to begin with. So this might sound like you might have heard some of these before or similar themes or other people that that are struggling with these themes as well. So some of the common ones are I just don't even know where to start. And obviously we can certainly help with that in the group. I don't have the motivation. So again, there's sort of two trains of thought really on motivation and the importance of motivation. So some people focus on place all their focus on discipline really instead of just relying on motivation. However, motivation is an important aspect of everyday life as well. The only issue is that it sort of ebbs and flows, it peaks and troughs when it comes to motivation. If anybody finds the magic supplement or pill or potion that keeps your motivation 100% of the time, you do please do let me know because I don't know, we'd be in the big books for sure. Put it that way, it doesn't really exist. So we've got to work with motivation, also got to work with the days where we don't have motivation. So, the way we talk to ourselves as well. So, why did you eat that again? Why am I so bad? Why am I so naughty? Why, you've done it again, and sort of telling yourself off regularly. And then there's also, I'm so stressed all of the time. I can't focus on nutrition right now. These are common themes. Again, to maybe take a moment just to think about what goes through your brain on a regular basis, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Some of you might be absolutely smashing it out the park right now, and you don't really have this that much. You might just take a moment to zoom out and think over the months. Some people during the colder months, it gets to them psychologically. It could be let's say the kids are on half term or we've got the summer holidays or something and mentally that just completely throws everything out. There's loads and loads of different versions in everybody's day-to-day life of where the psychological aspects just needs a little bit more care, attention, and support. So I wanted to go through this diagram. So it might look a little bit complex, but I can assure you it's relatively simple when I talk you through it step by step. So this diagram here basically encompasses where absolutely everybody is, psychologically speaking, when you're working towards a goal. So what we need to do is basically assess where you are at right now, and also simultaneously understand that progressing from the top here down to the bottom is what we're wanting to aim for. But also, if you look on the left hand side, we've got progress. So obviously working our way down that ladder. Simultaneously, we've got relapse on the right hand side here. So before we move on, I just want to make it explicitly clear that relapse is probably a strong word, but relapse is completely and utterly normal. It's really important that we respect that, because there's so many occasions, it could be that 2 week all-inclusive holiday. Like we said earlier on, the kids are off school and you're pulling your hair out. Kids are drawing on the bloody walls with crayons and the lot. And you've got all of this stuff to contend with on top of working towards your goals. It could be illness, it could be unsupportive relationships, it could be. Whoa, hold on a second. Oh, why has it done that? Well, that's annoying. There we go. So it could be many, many different reasons for relapsing. We're human beings at the end of the day. We're not machines, we're not robots. We have ups, we have downs. So just understand that there should be no how can I put it? No negative tab attached or label attached to the relapse bit. We need to stay as objective as possible when we're talking about the psychological elements and progressing throughout this ladder. So if I just jump to the top here, we've got pre-contemplation. So this would describe somebody in essence that they're not even thinking about their goals. They're not even, it could be quitting smoking or something like that. It could be training for a marathon. It could be getting a six pack. It could be what, it doesn't matter what it is. They're just not even giving it any sort of, not shining any light on this whatsoever. And then we jump to the contemplation stage, which is, of course, as it says on the tin, you're starting to think about it. So you think to yourself, I had it years ago, so probably about 8 years ago, and I started contemplating doing my first marathon. And the reason being is because when I was growing up, my dad was an avid runner, and he used to run with the North Derbyshire Running Club. And he was always doing trail runs at the weekend. He was always doing like famous races in the local area and stuff like that. And we used to go across and travel to these races as a family growing up. And I can remember probably not the most nutrition dense place, but sat in beer gardens during the summer and stuff with friends and family of other runners and getting to know them and playing with the other kids that were there when I was young. And so I've got all these memories of this, but there was one picture that I remembered that was on the wall of my mum and dad's house. And it was basically a photo of my dad passing or crossing the finish line of the London Marathon. And for some reason, I had it in my head. I was like, yeah, but dad's a runner though. I'm not a runner because I've never ran. I've never done a race before, so I'm not a runner. So I started contemplating it. I started thinking about it and going, yeah, but is that true though? Ultimately at some point, Dad wasn't a runner. He didn't shoot out of the womb, with his trainers on. So at some point, he's got to have gone from, a regular mere mortal like us to starting to train and feeling sick in the first session and all of that stuff and progressing right through to crossing that finish line. So that would be me at this stage. I was contemplating it. And then when it comes to the preparation side, so just in the middle, we're just jumping down another rung here. So on the preparation, in that example, I started talking to Dad about it, and he said, you'll be absolutely fine. You've just got to stay ridiculously consistent with your training. That's all you've got to do. Just it's one step after the next. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to sign up for it. And just lo and behold, by pure chance, for the first time, and I think it was 20 or 30 years, the town where I live, Chesterfield, were rehosting their first marathon again in like 20, 30 years. So I was like, this is almost a sign, like I need to get signed up for this. So I signed up for it, and I didn't give myself much time, like a bit of an idiot, really. I think it was about 5 months, that I had to train, and I'd never in my life run more than probably 5 miles, maybe. So I started training for it, and this is the action taking section. So, I was out and I was doing my 3 runs a week, and then at sort of 3 smaller runs per week that were more intense, hill training, things like that. And then it got to the weekends, and I was doing the longer runs and gradually progressing through the miles. So, upping it from 3 miles to 5 miles to 6.5 to 8 to 10 and so on. So this was me taking action. But then during that training, I actually went over on my ankle. Luckily, I didn't damage my ankle, but it was I basically probably look like a bit of an idiot, really, because I fell over a curb and ended up smashing my knee into the road, and it was my knee that hurt most. And I had to take a week off from the training side, so there was a little bit of a relapse in there. So I jumped back down to the preparation side, and I started thinking, well, do I just be this one of these weirdo alpha males and just run through the pain and all that stuff? And I thought, no, well, that's probably not the best thing to do. I wouldn't advise a friend to do that, so maybe don't do it yourself. So I started preparing again and thinking, right, I'm going to have a week off, properly rest, properly sort my nutrition out, keep maintaining my sleep patterns, all the things that are still within my control. I'm going to work on that. And then we get back into the action taking section. And then obviously the maintenance section is when you keep it up, you stay relentless over weeks and weeks and months. And yeah, so I crossed the finish line. Happy days. So again, I'm being selfish here and using this an example from myself. But when it comes to I just wanted to give you a description, really, of like a practical example of all of these different stages where I wasn't even thinking about it. I saw the pictures on the wall of my dad crossing the finish line. Oh, maybe I could do that. Putting the preparation in, obviously sorting out my training, sorting out my nutrition, even just buying some decent running trainers, signing up to the race, taking action, having the injury, taking action again, and then staying consistent with that maintenance. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is number one, everybody falls into one of these categories. Everybody. And number two, I just wanted to highlight this relapse section here, and help everyone understand it's utterly, completely normal to be shifting in between these rungs on this ladder. So again, just to confirm, the relapses are normal. It's not something to beat yourself up about. It's not something that to demonize or something like that. It's completely normal. These things happen. And it's not what happens that sort of frustrates us. It's our reaction to what happens that frustrates us. Now, interestingly, these relapses actually give us valuable feedback as well. So during that break that I had when I hurt my knee, I actually didn't even think about other aspects. Like, for example, the little niggles that I've got in my thighs and how tight my hamstrings were getting because I wasn't really focusing on my stretching and mobility as much as I should have been. And then also thinking about, think about the terrain of the actual race day itself. And because I had a week off mentally, I had a little bit of time to go, is there anything else that I'm missing here? And I can't see the wood for the trees. So these relapses can actually give you valuable feedback, and basically 99% of the time there is some opportunity in there to get that valuable feedback. But the relapse needs to happen sometimes in order for you to gain that valuable insight, if that makes sense. So the next thing I wanted to come on to was just the put it this way. So on this point here, no beating yourself up. So let's say I did like a famous James style reel in the group or something. I was talking about the psychological aspects, and I was sat in the ice bath going, guys, when it comes to nutrition, it's absolutely essential that if you're not 10 out of 10 week in, week out, you just go to town on yourself, like just beat yourself up as much as possible. That is the only way to progress through to the finish line and achieve your goal. If I put that in the group, that would be absolutely nuts and nobody would listen to me ever again. It would make no sense whatsoever. But guess what we all do? Every single one of us, we beat ourselves up as though that's a normal part of a successful program. It's so on the other thing is, you know, don't beat yourself up about beating yourself up either because it's a normal human thing. What we need to do is recognize it and nip it in the bud when it happens. And one sort of thing that it sort of stabilizes everything for me personally is when I'm progressing through my goals, whether it's fitness or nutrition or business or as a as a dad or like whatever it is, the one thing that I'd use to stabilize myself is just a simple question where I've got three boys, they're 7, 5, and 2, and as they grow up, let's say they get a little bit older and they're becoming young adults, they're 18, 19, 20, 21. Would I advise them to do what daddy is doing to himself right now? And that's one of the sort of clarity sort of moments really, because you go through the weeks, you can go through the months, and you don't really assess how you're treating yourself really. You assess how you're treating your kids and your significant others and family and friends, but we often don't sort of point the finger at ourselves often enough and go, well, what, but why are you not taking care of yourself enough? Why are you beating yourself up all the time? Every time your nutrition's a 9 out of 10, you see it as a failure. This is nuts. You're doing incredible. Use again, we go back to point two. It's just use it as valuable feedback. So if just assess it. So you've got a 9 out of 10. Why wasn't it a 10? What's the information there? Oh, well, I was really busy at work and I didn't track things as much for a couple of days. Whatever it might be, that feedback can give you valuable insights into what you can do going forward. So in a weird way, going forward from this point onwards, the more challenges you have, the more hurdles that you encounter, the better you're going to get, because every time you get those challenges and hurdles, you're going to get valuable feedback in return. So like make your mistakes and go through it as often as you can and just keep going with it if that makes sense. Because it's only going to improve you and help you progress and get better. Also, note a big no to on-off thinking, good bad thinking. So it's basically, it's termed dichotomous thinking. So seeing everything as an on-off switch. Like I've either been good or I've been bad, or I've achieved this thing or haven't achieved this thing. It doesn't necessarily work like that the vast majority of the time. So we could take a meal like this on the right hand side, for example. So what we could look at that and hopefully you would agree with me in saying it looks pretty damn good. But let's say we analyze it nutritionally speaking. So there's multiple nutrition boxes that we can use to assess whether a meal's decent or not. So obviously we've got toast, it's white toast. Maybe we could add some more fiber in there. So we might give that, I don't know, a 5 or a 6 out of 10. There's eggs on there, but maybe that's not fulfilling my protein quota for this particular meal. So there's some protein in there. There's some chorizo on there as well. So it's good. Let's say it's good. It's not like tip top. It's not too bad. So 6, 7 out of 10 maybe. Flavor wise, we could probably rate it a 9.5 because I absolutely love this meal. And then you think, okay, what about the 5 a day component? And you think to yourself, well, apart from the little tiny sprinkling of pepper and a little bit of coriander on there, it's basically got no contribution. So you'd give it maybe a 0.5 or a 1. So it's much more. You can't just say this is a good meal. You can't say this is a bad meal. Nutrition doesn't really work like that. So try and avoid this dichotomous thinking because it's a lot more nuanced and it needs context and it's got to be in relation to your goals and what you want to achieve, and your goal might be different to somebody else's. So hopefully, I'm painting a little bit of a picture here that dichotomous thinking in nutrition doesn't really have much of a place. The only thing that I would say that would be closer to being to sort of reasonably justifying having that dichotomous thinking is if you think about it, there's not, like we just described, there's not really any such thing as a good or bad meal. However, there is, debatably, again, with a little asterisk there, a good or bad diet as a whole. So I'm not interested in what one meal today you're consuming. I'm far more concerned about if you're consuming 4 meals per day, over the course of the week, there's 28 meals there. What's happening on average with all of these nutrition data points? Um, so again, just tying it back into the psychological aspects, sometimes you can use nutrition as, let's say you were in a rush one day and you just had to grab a sandwich or something, and you think to yourself, "Oh my God, you're doing it again. Why? Like, you're so bad. You're so naughty. This is a bad meal." All of these things, negative self-talk, beating yourself up, dichotomous thinking, it doesn't help. It's of no benefit whatsoever to your success. So hopefully that'll make sense. So I just wanted to give you a little final roundup, a little bit of a summary on some other topics as well that might interest you, and you might want to do a little bit of research in. And as the weeks and months go by, I'll be touching on these topics as well. So one thing in the research is mindfulness, and mindfulness in a nutshell is number one, eliminating distractions in and around your meals and your nutrition. And number two is bringing your full, unadulterated attention to that meal. And that's it, really. It's simple to describe and define, but it's a lot less simple to actually practically deliver that. And the reason being is because sometimes, like we said earlier on, the kids might be running around screaming at each other in the background. That's a distraction. There's not too much you can do about that. However, there's other things like, having your phone on airplane mode and or you don't even have it in the same room. Like it could be scrolling through the iPad or something, or the TV's on whilst you're having your lunch or your evening meal with the family. Again, these are all opportunities to get rid of psychological distractions and bring your full attention to that meal, that nutritious, amazing meal that you've just crafted. Now, you might ask yourself, Shane, what on earth has that got to do with anything? How beneficial is that? There's actually a profound amount of research on this topic. So I'm gonna again, I could do like a 2-3 hour presentation just on that topic, but in summary, so you have people with certain conditions, for example. So, for example, when it comes to binge eating, if you adopt mindfulness practices, you can significantly reduce not only the frequency of binge eating episodes, but the intensity and the impact that each one of those occasions that it occurs has as well. So if you're somebody that's a binge eater, literally just bringing your full attention to that meal and noticing your trigger points and things like that, this is all to do with mindfulness. Also, when it comes to, let's say, we'll give a simple example of somebody that's on a weight loss journey. So, if you're wanting to lose weight, what we could do with happening really in as many meals as physically possible is to have you noticing the signs that your body gives you that tells you you're getting full now. Okay, so this feeling of satiety, this feeling of fullness. Now, if you've got two people, one's in a room with, on their phone, but also looking up at the TV and completely distracted, you're not going to notice anywhere near as effectively the signals that your body sends you on how full you are. So when you get an 80-90% full, if you're completely undistracted, you're going to notice those signals much more effectively. And there's lots of research on this topic as well. So for somebody that wanting to lose weight, this could genuinely reduce your overeating patterns by maybe 10, 20, 30%, because you're so distracted in all of your meals that you end up overeating and not noticing that you're getting full. So we've got journaling as well. So again, there's something about putting pen to paper physically and also assessing how your day's gone. And it could, when it comes to journaling, I like to use it as a tool to say, just to ask myself some questions and say, how did your day go today? What went really well for you? What didn't go so well for you? With the things that went well, what are you going to do to stay consistent with that? With the things that didn't go so well, what can we do to change and adapt so that we can bump that 7 out of 10 up to an 8 out of 10 tomorrow? So it could be just a simple process like that. Journaling helps massively. Also, it helps with psychologically getting the thoughts out of your brain and onto paper. So if you're one of these people like me, and I'm really bad for this, you're trying to go to sleep at night, and what goes through your head? Oh crap, I didn't get back to the accountants. I really need to send them that email tomorrow morning. Did I order that thing for the kids for school? Have I got back to that client? What that piece of content I created, I think I need to do that as a video, not as an infographic. Or this. Your brain's just going haywire. And when I write all my thoughts down onto paper, it's literally like three-quarters of the way there to me going, I don't have to think about that now. Get it onto paper. We'll park that mentally and visit that tomorrow or the next day. So this is a bit of a unique one. So that, again, this is my little injection here. So there's a number of things that I'm interested in generally. So I love music. I love playing bass guitar. I love nutrition. Of course, you'd like to think so. But one of the things that I read about is philosophy. So Stoicism, and basically the reason why I'm so interested in Stoicism is because it's been around for thousands of years, and probably I'd say maybe 90% plus of the principles that are outlined within Stoicism are directly transferable to modern day life, which is pretty staggering considering, we're talking about Plato and Socrates, Aristotle, Marcus Aurelius, and people in antiquity that had a completely and utterly different life and problems than we do today. But their psychological vehicles and mechanisms for coping, psychologically speaking, with the day-to-day challenges in life, the actual tools are directly transferable to today, to the point where Stoicism it was actually a precursor. It was like a foundation which was built upon to develop rational emotive behavior therapy and CBT that we see used today in clinical settings. So the principles underpinned by philosophy that's been around for thousands of years. So again, something like that might be worth looking at. And one of the fundamental, again, I've read for years and years and years on this topic, so I'm not gonna. I have to do a summary here. But if we could really liquidate it down into like a couple of bullet points, control versus non-control. So essentially, the stuff that you have in your life that you have full control over, and the stuff in life that you have absolutely no control over whatsoever. So if I bring we have to know that first, to put things in life simply. Stuff you have control over, stuff you don't have any control over whatsoever. So therefore, the next step is to think about the strategies that you have available to you for the things that you can control, and complete and utter acceptance of the things that you can't control. So if you think about this in nutrition terms, so let's say or it doesn't even have to be nutrition. It could be like getting to the gym or something. Let's say the car tire, like you get a puncture on the way to the gym or something, and you start raising your fist to the world and going, "Why does this happen to me?" and that sort of thing. All of this just adds additional stress. It doesn't actually do anything. The on paper, the logical thing to do is accept that you have no control over that situation and accept it, and that's it. And go, look, I'm driving a car around tens of thousands of miles every year of my life. I'm going to get a puncture at some point. Today's my day. That's it. And that's all of the additional stress that goes on that. Like, I'm not going to get to the gym. I'm going to have to cancel a session. I'm not going to get strong. I was hoping for a PB today. All of that stuff is just superfluous to what's needed to be done psychologically speaking in that moment. However, there's stuff that you can control. So you can map out your food in advance. You can meal plan. You can change the recipes and think to yourself, well, how can I get an extra 10 grams of protein on average in each of my meals this week on top of what I normally have because I'm struggling to hit that target? How can I get more fruit and veg into my diet? How can I stay more hydrated? And so on. These are things that you have control over. So therefore, you can start crafting your strategies. But I do think that this is a key part of people's stress levels, psychologically speaking, when they're not achieving their goals. You've just got to think, if you're worried and stressed and anxious about like not meeting this goal and that sort of thing, you're thinking in future terms here, and you're not thinking about what you can do today. So there was, I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was a famous saying that I think it was worry is interest paid on a debt that might never have to be paid, or something along those terms. So, worry doesn't really do anything. It just stresses you out in the moment, and it's not even happened yet. So, full acceptance of our current situation. And then also we've got to factor this in and marry this up with your environment, your thoughts, your reactions. So, you can't change anything that happens to you in your environment. Things happen to you in life, but what you can control is your reaction to those challenges. So again, somebody cuts you up in the road on the way to work, and again, everybody gets stressed and starts, I don't know, maybe being a little bit verbal on the road and stuff like that. We all do it, but you can actually control those reactions, and you're just getting yourself stressed up over something that is going to happen day to day. So again, thinking about how this marries across to nutrition as well. Of course, there's lots of different principles that we've discussed today, and hopefully it sheds a little bit of light on some other strategies that you can contemplate and maybe get involved with, and maybe do a little bit of research on, and also I wanted to bring the stoicism bit in. I'm not saying that's the correct thing at all. It just I just find it incredibly interesting. And also it's helped me personally in loads of different areas. So not just nutrition goals and things like that, but just how to cope with day-to-day life as well. So I thought it might be worthwhile sharing that as well, with some additional net gains in other areas potentially. So does that all make sense? You're more than welcome to say no.
No, it does. That all makes perfect sense. And I recently read Marcus Aurelius Meditations because we had someone on the podcast. I've been involved, interested in that kind of thing for a long time. But we had a guy on the podcast from Prague who talks a lot about meditation and mindfulness and stoicism, and he's a really, really good guy, actually, really interesting guy. And so yeah, no, it's great. I think it's brilliant. And like you say, a lot of the time when you overeat, or occasionally I've had it recently where I've maybe drank alcohol through being stressed, through wanting to,
Yeah.
and usually, and you make those decisions when you're under stress or emotive, and most of the time, like you say, if you practice some of those other things, you'd be better off, But it's like one of those things.
100%.
That's a big.
I'm glad you mentioned Marcus Aurelius because he's like the pinnacle. He's like my hero, basically. Obsessed with learning about that man.
Yeah.
But then there's another one. So there's How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. There's a guy called Donald Robertson, and so like the meditations is like literally his journal, his inner thoughts that was never supposed to be published. Um, but it's quite intense. It's
Yeah.
very, very intense to think about what to translate that into day-to-day life and so on. But Donald Robertson's creating How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, which has basically padded it with context and given like a story and things like that alongside it, and it's a bit more palatable, shall we say?
I think there's a few books because then he also recommended. I think there's a few books, isn't there? Probably there's loads of books where they kind of take that and try and explain it
Yeah, yeah.
and make it more palatable, like you say. But yeah, no, that's really good. That's really helpful, and I think it's good because most people do beat themselves up if they're, or it's the classic one, isn't it? On a Wednesday, you kind of maybe get a takeaway or something, and then you think, oh well, I'll start again next Monday.
Yeah.
Right up the next like 5 days.
Once we got Thursday out the way, it's the weekend practically on Friday, so you may as well just yeah. It's strange like how your brain works, but I think it's unbelievably valuable to almost like the description that I've used in the past is like see yourself on the ground, but you're up in a helicopter looking at what your thought processes are doing. So you're like external to how your brain's working and going, oh well, that's interesting. Shane and James, when they get stressed, they go, their brain automatically, without even thinking, just goes, I'd love a glass of wine when I get in tonight. It's like, why is that? Is that the best thing for you at that period in time? Who knows? Maybe it is, but more often than not, it's probably not. And then you go, well, okay, well, what can we do differently? So every time I get stressed, you go, cool, I can't wait to go for a long walk to clear my mind. We replace that habit, and it's going to be so annoying to do that for a bit. So you've got to work on that a little bit as well, and then you do it for a couple of weeks. You go, oh, this is way better. But if you don't think about how what your brain's doing and how it's kicking off without you even knowing it, then it just runs the show, really.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've heard of it as well, like where they talk about separating the kind of the stimulus from the response. So if someone's got this thing whereby, they're stressed, they go for a biscuit. It's like,
Yeah.
and then it's the instant thing. It's kind of just creating a little bit of separation, isn't it, from that, from the the thing that happens to then how you respond. It's just giving yourself a few minutes to think, like I say, go outside, get some fresh air, have a glass of water, whatever. Just break the pattern of just that's what you always do, isn't it? But
Absolutely. There's a perfect example on that. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be going out for a big long walk or something like that. It can literally just be adding some time in between the stimulus and what your response wants you to do. So there's a client that I worked with. It'll be about eight years ago. There's a lady called Aggie, and she basically said that she's got kids in the house. Every time she's stressed, there's them, like, them animal biscuits, them like with chocolate on the back of them, shaped like little animals. She says there's always a pack of them or always a pack of the fun size Maltesers in the house. She says every time the kids don't bloody listen, I just want to go to the cupboard and go, I don't care, I'm just having what I want. And so the first thing that I said to her, I was like, if you want to, go for it. There's no problem. And she was like, what? I said, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is when you're stressed, give it half an hour. And if you want to go for it after half an hour and you genuinely want it, then have it. It's not, it's who cares? It's a handful of Maltesers anyway. It's happening far too often for you to get your results, but at the same time, it's not that big a deal. Just chill, don't worry about it. All you have to do is wait. And then she literally came back a couple of weeks later and said it's dropped by about 80%, having the Maltesers. I was like, well, it's amazing, isn't it? Because your brain goes, it's I'll use that example of somebody cutting you up in traffic and you're like, oh my God, I could rip that guy's head off here or something. Everybody does it, but your brain's like all the blood's just rushed to your head. You can't even think. You've got no clarity, nothing. But then, it gets to an hour or two later and you're distracted by work, and then you go on your dinner break, you think, oh, I'll sort my lunch out or whatever. You're not still angry anymore. That's gone. That's completely gone. So, but it's the same with the psychological responses in relation to nutrition. It's the exact same thing. Sometimes you just need to give your brain a little bit of time. What was it? The chimp paradox. I don't know if you've read that. It talks about how your brain's basically like a little monkey inside your head, and you've got to give it time to cool off and treat it like a little monkey almost. Um, but yeah, I find it fascinating. Um, there's loads of topics we could go into there as well, because there's actually topics in research as well. So, as part of my doctoral research, technically, I'm part of the research because I'm one of the tools that is being, as in me personally, I'm a tool that's being used for, let's say, doing search strategies and things like that for different available research papers. But then that means that I need assessing then for validity and accuracy and things like that. So then there's a whole section attached to the research called reflexivity, where you assess yourself as a practitioner, and you do that regularly throughout to ensure that you've not got any sort of unconscious biases and things like that, which we all do. So, but anyway, we could go in another hour long, but
we've got all the dates, haven't we, for the next for I think March and April as well. So
just March.
Oh, March.
Yeah,
March.
March.
Okay, brilliant. No, fantastic. Great. Thanks so much, Shane.
love it. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed the recording as well. And obviously, if you've got any questions, just tag me in the group. Always only a mess away from you. And yeah, I look forward to sharing the challenge details a little bit later today.
All right.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shane. Cheers,
Happy
mate.
days. Enjoy your days.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.